What if I told you there's a town that once thrived, full of life, but now it doesn't appear on any map? A place where the streets are empty, the houses crumble, and the people are gone. Some say Black Hollow never truly vanished. That if you stumble upon its streets on a foggy night, you'll hear voices calling from the shadows, begging you not to leave. But the most terrifying question is, what happened to everyone who lived there? Black Hollow, a name almost forgotten, erased from maps, but never erased from memory. In the early 1800s, it was a thriving mining town in the mountains of West Virginia, the kind of place where families built their homes, children played in the dusty streets, and men risked their lives every day to pull coal and iron from the earth. The town grew fast. At its peak, Black Hollow had a population of nearly 2,000 people. There was a general store, a schoolhouse, a church, and rows of modest homes built from timber cut from the nearby forest. The mine was the beating heart of the community. As long as the mine produced, the town survived. And in those early years, it produced more than anyone could have dreamed. But prosperity does not last forever. And in Black Hollow, wealth and hope gave way to whispers and fear. The first rumors started quietly. Miners spoke of strange sounds echoing through the tunnels deep underground. Not the groan of rock, not the rush of water, but voices. Low, steady voices, sometimes singing, sometimes crying. At first, the men laughed it off, blaming exhaustion or drink, but the voices grew louder. One miner swore he heard his own name whispered in the dark. Another claimed he saw shadows moving along the tunnel walls when no lantern was lit. Then came the accidents. At least 3 cave-ins happened in the span of a single year, far more than the mine had ever seen before. Entire groups of men were trapped and never recovered. The bodies that were found showed strange injuries, scratches, burns, even broken bones that did not match the collapse itself. The families buried their dead, but unease spread through the town like a sickness. Still, life went on. Children went to school, women baked bread, and church bells rang on Sundays. The people of Black Hollow were resilient, but beneath the surface, something had shifted. The town was no longer just a place of work and life. It was becoming a place of fear. The school teacher at the time, a woman named Margaret Ellis, left behind several journals that survive to this day. In one entry, she wrote, "The children complain of shadows at the windows during class. They say they hear knocking beneath the floorboards. I have dismissed it as imagination, but even I feel the cold touch of dread in that room. There are times I swear I hear children laughing when the desks are empty." Margaret's journals reveal the slow decline of the town in heartbreaking detail. Families began to leave, one by one, abandoning their homes and seeking safety elsewhere. Some fled in the middle of the night without explanation. Others sold what they could and promised to write, but were never heard from again. By the late 1850s, Black Hollow's population had been cut in half. But for every family that left, there were some who stayed. Whether it was pride, stubbornness, or desperation, these people refused to give up their homes. They told themselves the accidents were just bad luck, the rumors just fear. But the unease never left. Strange things began happening in the streets. Horses spooked at empty corners. Lamps blew out in homes without a draft. Several residents swore they saw figures watching them from the tree line at dusk, tall, pale figures that vanished when approached. The townsfolk began locking their doors earlier and earlier each night, whispering prayers as the sun went down. Then, in 1863, the mine closed. Officially, the reason was economic. The deeper tunnels were unstable, and the war had disrupted supply lines. But locals knew the truth. Too many men had died. Too many whispers had followed the survivors out of the darkness. The mine was sealed, and with it, the town's future. Without work, Black Hollow crumbled. Stores closed, homes emptied, and the once lively streets fell silent. By 1870, fewer than 100 people remained. And yet, even as the town died, it refused to vanish completely. Travelers passing through described eerie encounters. One man said he stopped to water his horse and heard music drifting from the empty church, though its doors were locked tight. Another claimed he saw children playing in the schoolyard, their laughter echoing through the valley, but when he approached, the yard was empty. The final blow came in 1877, when a fire broke out in the heart of the town. Several buildings burned to the ground, and though no bodies were found, those last few families disappeared without a trace. Black Hollow was left behind, abandoned, its buildings rotting into the soil. On paper, the town no longer exists. Maps stopped marking it, records of its people grew thin. But the land remembers. The ruins remain, hidden by trees and fog. And those who claim to have stumbled upon Black Hollow in modern times tell stories that are hard to ignore. They say the town is not gone, that sometimes, on certain nights, when the fog is heavy and the forest is still, the streets of Black Hollow reappear. And if you find yourself walking them, you will see shadows in the windows, hear the echoes of voices long dead, and feel the weight of eyes watching you from the dark. The question is not whether Black Hollow existed. It did. The question is, why did it vanish? Why was it erased so completely? And why does it seem to linger, waiting, ready to welcome anyone who dares to stumble into its streets again? The answers lie deeper, hidden in the stories of those who stayed when they should have left. The ones who heard the whispers and chose to remain. The ones whose lives and deaths still echo in the ruins of the lost town. By the late 1860s, Black Hollow was a shell of what it had once been. The mine was closed, businesses shuttered, and most families gone. But a few remained, clinging to what little they had. These were the last residents of Black Hollow, and their stories are perhaps the most disturbing of all. Among them was the Whitaker family. Samuel Whitaker had been a miner for nearly 20 years before the collapse of 1861, which left him with a limp and a haunted look in his eyes. His wife, Ruth, was a quiet woman who rarely left their small house at the edge of town. They had 2 children, Thomas, a boy of 9, and Eliza, a girl of 7. Neighbors later recalled that the Whitaker children often spoke of a friend who visited them at night. They described him as tall and thin, with skin pale as candle wax and eyes that glowed faintly red in the dark. At first, Samuel dismissed it as childhood imagination. But when he found his daughter standing outside in the yard at midnight, speaking to the empty air, his patience began to waver. Ruth wrote letters to her sister in Charleston during those years. Only a handful survive, but they are chilling. In one she wrote, "Eliza will not sleep unless the window is open, for she says he waits outside and will be cross if we keep him out. Last night, I swear I heard the window unlatch on its own." Samuel bolted it shut, but in the morning, it stood open again. The Whitakers were not alone in their unease. Old Mrs. Harper, a widow who lived in the center of town, often told visitors that she heard knocking beneath her floorboards at night. Sometimes it came in threes. Sometimes it went on for hours. She claimed she pulled up several boards once, expecting to find rats or water damage, but there was nothing beneath, only dry soil, cold and black as coal. Another man, Jacob Miller, who had taken over as caretaker of the abandoned church, reported strange occurrences inside. He said the pews would scrape across the floor by themselves, as if unseen parishioners were shifting in their seats. The bell in the steeple, long broken, would sometimes toll at midnight, even though the rope had rotted away years before. The strangest account comes from Margaret Ellis, the school teacher who had stayed on despite the exodus. She continued to keep her journal, writing down the eerie events with increasing despair. One entry reads, "The children are gone. Their desks are empty, yet I hear them. Every morning, The sound of lessons recited fills the room, though I stand alone at the blackboard. Yesterday, I called out their names, one by one, and I swear to you voices answered. By 1875, fewer than 24 people remained in Black Hollow. And then slowly, they began to disappear. The Harpers were the first. One morning, a traveler passing through found their house empty. The door was open, a pot of stew still simmering on the hearth, and Mrs. Harper's knitting lay neatly across a chair. But the woman herself was gone, as if she had simply stepped out and never returned. Next was Jacob Miller. His belongings were found scattered in the church, his Bible lying open on the altar, but he was nowhere to be found. Some say they heard his voice echoing in the church for years afterward, whispering prayers no one dared to repeat. The Whitakers lasted longer, but their fate was no kinder. One night, neighbors heard screams coming from their home. By the time anyone arrived, the house was empty. The table was overturned, dishes shattered, and muddy footprints led from the back door into the woods. The footprints belonged to Samuel, Ruth, Thomas, and Eliza, but they ended abruptly less than 100 feet into the trees, as if the family had been swallowed whole by the earth. Margaret Ellis was the last. Her journal ends in the winter of 1877. The final entry is scrawled, the ink smeared, as if written in haste. They are calling me now. I hear them outside, every voice I ever knew, and more besides. I must go. If anyone finds this, do not stay here. Do not listen when they call your name. She was never seen again. Not long after, the fire came. No one knows how it started. Some say it was lightning. Others whisper it was set deliberately, an attempt to cleanse the town of its curse. Whatever the cause, flames swept through the heart of Black Hollow, consuming what little remained. The few buildings that survived were abandoned, left to rot, and so the last residents of Black Hollow vanished. Their lives ended in silence, their stories preserved only in scattered journals, letters, and rumors. But even in death, they did not leave the town behind. To this day, those who dare to walk among the ruins claim they feel watched. They hear voices in the wind, whispers in the trees, the echoes of those who never truly left. Some even say that on certain nights, you can see them. The Whitaker children standing at the edge of the forest, Mrs. Harper knitting silently on her porch, Jacob Miller kneeling in the church, mouthing words you cannot hear, and Margaret Ellis staring from the window of the schoolhouse, her eyes dark and hollow. These were the last residents of Black Hollow, and in some way, perhaps they still are. For most people, the story of Black Hollow ends with its fire and abandonment, but those who dig deeper into its past find something stranger, something darker, something that suggests the town's fate was never just bad luck. It was a curse buried deep beneath the hollow itself. Long before miners ever struck their picks into the mountainside, the land had a history. Native tribes avoided the valley where Black Hollow would later be built. According to old oral traditions passed down through fragmented stories, the place was considered forbidden ground. They called it the Valley of the Silent. Hunters would not camp there. No one would build fires within its borders. The stories claim that shadows moved differently in that hollow, and voices could be heard even when the valley was still. When European settlers arrived, they ignored those warnings. They saw the rich forest, the flowing creek, and the dark veins of coal beneath the earth. To them, it was opportunity. They built homes, cleared land, and dug into the mountain. They believed they had conquered the silence, but the silence had only been waiting. The first strange discovery came during the earliest days of mining. In 1815, workers uncovered a cavern deep underground, a place that had been hidden for centuries. Inside, they found strange carvings etched into the stone. Not writing, not pictures exactly, but shapes that seemed to twist and shift when the lantern light flickered. Some miners swore the symbols glowed faintly in the dark, pulsing like veins of light beneath the rock. Most men refused to go back into that cavern after the first sight, but the owners of the mine pressed on, sealing off the chamber and ordering the workers to dig around it. Superstition has no place in profit, one foreman wrote in a letter that still survives. But the miners never forgot what they saw. Some claimed that after that day, the voices began. The more they dug, the worse it became. Strange drafts swept through tunnels with no opening. Tools went missing, only to be found buried in solid rock. One man claimed he saw a figure standing at the far end of a tunnel, watching him silently before melting into the wall itself. And then there were the dreams. Several miners complained of nightmares so vivid they woke screaming. They dreamed of black water rising in the mine, flooding the tunnels, and swallowing them whole. They dreamed of faces pressing against the walls of the cavern, mouths open in silent screams. One miner even refused to return to work, saying, "The mountain remembers. The mountain hungers, we should not wake it." But no one listened. Work continued. The mine thrived, and the curse spread. As the years went on, townspeople who had never stepped foot in the mine also began to feel its grip. Children woke screaming at night, saying voices whispered to them from the corners of their rooms. Farmers found livestock slaughtered in their pens, their bodies arranged in strange patterns no wild animal could have made. One woman, Annabel Clark, claimed she saw her dead husband standing in the doorway of their home months after his burial. He didn't speak. He only stared at her until she fainted, and when she woke, he was gone. The church tried to intervene. In 1832, Reverend Jonathan Price performed what he called a cleansing ritual over the town, urging people to gather and pray for protection. That night, the church bell rang 13 times, though the rope had been cut. By morning, the Reverend was found dead in the pulpit, his eyes wide open and his hands folded as if still in prayer. After that, the people stopped speaking openly of a curse. But in hushed whispers, when the lanterns burned low, they admitted what they feared, that Black Hollow had been built on ground that did not want them there. And every tragedy that followed the mine accidents, the strange disappearances, the fire was not coincidence, but consequence. When modern researchers began piecing together the fragments of Black Hollow's history, they noticed a pattern. Every 40 years, something catastrophic struck the town. The first mine collapse, then the string of disappearances, then the fire. The intervals were too precise to ignore. It was as if the hollow had a rhythm, a heartbeat, and every few decades it demanded payment. And perhaps it still does. Those who claim to have visited the ruins in modern times report unnerving experiences that echo the past. Some hikers say they stumbled across old mine entrances sealed with stone, yet from within they heard faint tapping, as if someone or something was still trapped inside. Others report finding symbols carved into tree trunks, identical to those once seen in the cavern beneath the mine. One story tells of a group of explorers who spent the night near the ruins of the schoolhouse. They awoke to find their belongings moved, arranged in a circle around their campfire. In the dirt beside them, letters had been scratched out, "Leave." The group fled before sunrise. Skeptics dismiss these tales as superstition, the invention of thrill seekers, or the distortion of memory. But those who know the history of Black Hollow see them as signs that the curse has never lifted. The hollow still remembers. It still hungers. And perhaps the most disturbing thought of all is this: if the town vanished because of a curse, then it did not vanish completely. The people who disappeared, the voices that echo, the shadows that move, they may not be gone. They may simply be waiting beneath the earth for someone to wake them again, Today, the town of Black Hollow is gone from maps, erased from official history, but its ruins still exist. Hidden deep within the forests of West Virginia, they are not easy to find. Roads that once led to the town have crumbled into dirt trails, swallowed by trees and undergrowth. But for those who seek them out, the remains of Black Hollow are still there, waiting. The first thing most people notice is the silence. The forest around the hollow is alive with birds, insects, and the rustling of leaves. But as soon as you step into the valley where the town once stood, the world goes quiet. No birds sing, no wind stirs. Even the air feels heavy, pressing down on you with a weight that is difficult to explain. Visitors often describe it as stepping into another world, a place where time has stopped, but memory has not. Scattered among the trees are the bones of the town, stone foundations covered in moss, the blackened remains of chimneys standing alone, their houses long since turned to ash, rusted nails and broken glass buried in the dirt. A few rotting wooden beams still cling to one another, the skeletons of homes that once held laughter, tears, and lives now lost. The most recognizable ruin is the church. Its roof collapsed long ago, and its bell tower leans dangerously, but the stone walls remain. Inside, pews are nothing more than piles of splintered wood, and the pulpit is cracked in half. Yet those who step inside say the air feels colder than anywhere else in the hollow. Some swear they hear faint whispers as soon as they cross the threshold, prayers spoken in voices too soft to understand. One hiker reported that he entered the church alone, only to hear footsteps following him across the broken floorboards. When he turned, there was no one there. Another visitor claimed the church bell rang once, a deep, hollow sound, though the bell itself has been gone for more than a century. The schoolhouse is another ruin that draws attention. Its roof is caved in, its windows shattered, but the outline of the building still stands. Explorers who step inside often describe an overwhelming sense of sadness, as if dozens of eyes are watching them from the corners. Some have even claimed to hear children laughing, faint and distant, echoing through the empty room. One woman said she found tiny handprints in the dust on the blackboard, though no one else had entered before her. The mine itself is more difficult to find. Most of the entrances were sealed long ago, but a few collapsed tunnels still gape open in the earth, dark mouths leading into the mountain. Those who have dared to peer inside say the air is damp and foul, carrying the scent of rot and rust. Some claim to have heard faint sounds from deep within, the clink of pickaxes, the murmur of voices, or the steady drip of water where no water flows. One group of explorers reported hearing 3 knocks echo from inside the mine, slow, deliberate, and unmistakable. They left immediately, too frightened to stay. Not everyone who visits the ruins leaves unscathed. There are stories of people losing time in the hollow, stepping in during daylight and emerging hours later to find the sun has set. Others describe sudden disorientation, as if the town shifts around them, its ruins rearranging when they are not looking. A few even claim to have seen the town restored for brief moments, houses standing tall, smoke rising from chimneys, people walking the streets. But when they blink, the vision is gone, and they are left among the ruins once more. Perhaps the most disturbing reports are of encounters with the residents themselves. Travelers have spoken of seeing figures in the distance, a woman knitting on a porch that no longer exists, children running across the schoolyard, a man kneeling in prayer inside the broken church. These figures never speak. They vanish as soon as they are approached, leaving only the chill of their presence behind. There are even those who say the ruins of Black Hollow are dangerous. Local legends warn that if you stay too long, the hollow will not let you go. One story tells of a group of 4 friends who camped in the valley overnight. In the morning, only 3 returned. The missing man's belongings were still there, his backpack, his shoes, even his food, but he was gone. Search parties combed the forest for days, but no trace of him was ever found. His friends insisted he had simply vanished in the middle of the night without a sound. Skeptics dismiss these tales as exaggerations or lies. They argue that the ruins are nothing more than the remains of a forgotten town, and the rest is imagination fueled by fear. But those who have walked among the crumbling walls and stood in the silent streets know better. They know that Black Hollow is not truly abandoned. Its past lingers in every stone, every shadow, every breath of cold air. The ruins are forbidden for a reason, not because of danger from the earth, but because of what waits in the silence. Black Hollow may be gone from maps, but it is not gone from the world. And those who dare to step into its forgotten streets may find that the town is not as empty as it seems. Legends say that some places do not stay buried forever. They return, and Black Hollow is one of those places. Though the town burned, though its people vanished, though its name was struck from maps, it has a way of pulling itself back into the present, reaching across time, luring the curious and sometimes keeping them. There are countless modern accounts from hikers, campers, and explorers who claim they have stumbled upon the hollow by accident. Some say they were following a trail that seemed perfectly clear, only to find themselves standing among the remains of buildings they had never heard of. Others say they were lost for hours, wandering in circles, until the fog parted and the town revealed itself. The strangest part of these stories is how often people describe the town as alive, not ruins. Not ashes, alive. One traveler in the 1980s recalled walking through what looked like a perfectly intact main street. Houses stood tall, shutters swinging in the breeze, and lamps flickered in the windows. He even smelled bread baking. But when he reached out to touch a door, his hand passed straight through the wood. The illusion shattered, and suddenly he was standing among rotting foundations and moss. Another account from 2004 describes two teenagers exploring the forest at night. They claimed they heard music drifting through the trees, faint but distinct, a piano playing a hymn. Following the sound, they came to the ruins of the church. The roof was collapsed, the pews broken, yet the music grew louder as they stepped inside. Then, all at once, it stopped. The silence that followed was so complete. One of the boys said it felt like the air itself was holding its breath. They ran without looking back. But the most unsettling stories are those in which people say the town noticed them. One man, a local hunter, told of walking through the hollow at dusk. He said he saw a group of children playing near the schoolhouse. At first he thought they were other visitors, but as he drew closer, he realized their clothing was old-fashioned, their skin pale as ash. They stopped their game and turned to look at him. Every single one smiled. Then, just as quickly, they vanished. That night, he woke in his bed to the sound of knocking at his window, 3 slow, steady knocks. He never went back to Black Hollow again. Some visitors claimed to have lost hours, even days, in the hollow. One woman reported hiking with her friends, only to step a few feet into the ruins and become separated from them. She said she wandered alone through the town for what felt like hours, hearing whispers in every corner. When she finally found her way out, her friends told her she had been gone for less than 5 minutes. These strange events suggest that Black Hollow is not just a place of ruins. It is a place caught between worlds. Sometimes it exists in the past, sometimes in the present, and sometimes in both at once. Those who enter may not just be exploring history, they may be stepping into something alive, something that still breathes in the shadows. Paranormal investigators who have visited the site speak of unusual energy readings. Their equipment malfunctions, cameras refuse to record, batteries drain instantly. Some investigators have even reported physical symptoms, nausea, sudden headaches, dizziness, or the sensation of being watched. A few claim they left with scratches on their skin, though nothing touched them. Skeptics say all of this can be explained by imagination, fear, or natural causes. But even they struggle to explain the stories of those who never return. Every decade or so, someone goes missing near the hollow. Search teams comb the area, but no trace is found. To this day, some locals whisper that the town is claiming new residents, adding them to the voices that linger in the silence. And the most terrifying thought of all is this: what if the town is not just returning in fleeting glimpses, but preparing to return fully? What if Black Hollow, erased from maps and forgotten by time, is waiting for the right moment to step back into the world? Imagine it, a foggy night in the mountains. A hiker stumbles into the valley, but instead of ruins, he sees lights glowing in the windows, hears footsteps on the streets, smells food cooking in kitchens. The town is alive again. The only question is, will he ever walk out? Perhaps Black Hollow never truly left. Perhaps it is always there, just out of sight, waiting for the moment you let your guard down, waiting for you to blink, waiting for you to step into its streets and realize too late that you are no longer in your own world, but in theirs. The return of Black Hollow is not about if. It is about when. Black Hollow has been gone for more than a century, yet it refuses to die. Its name is rarely found in books, its history erased from records, and its ruins swallowed by the forest. But in stories, in whispers, and in the memories of those who have walked its forgotten streets, the town still lives. The legend of Black Hollow has become part of local folklore in West Virginia. Around campfires, people speak of the miners who heard voices in the tunnels. They tell the tale of the Whitaker children and their pale companion at the window. They recall the fire that ended it all, and the way the town vanished as if it had never been there at all. For many, it is just a ghost story. But for those who have seen the hollow with their own eyes, it is something more. Even today, new stories emerge. Hikers, hunters, and wanderers come forward with experiences too strange to dismiss. A traveler who found himself lost in fog, only to hear church bells toll in the distance. A group of campers who awoke to find the words "We see you" written in the dirt beside their fire. A lone explorer who swears he saw the schoolhouse lights glowing at midnight, though the building itself has no roof. Some of these people never speak of it again. Others cannot stop speaking of it, warning anyone who will listen. Black Hollow is not empty, it is not safe. Paranormal researchers have taken interest in recent decades, but their work rarely lasts long. Teams report malfunctioning equipment, sudden illnesses, and a sense of being stalked through the ruins. One investigator described hearing his own name whispered from the tree line, even though none of his companions had spoken. Another claimed to have recorded hours of audio filled with faint voices, only to discover that every single tape had erased itself the following day. But perhaps the most chilling accounts come from those who say the town does not just linger in the forest, it follows. A woman who visited the hollow once said she returned home to find muddy footprints across her living room floor. They were small, like those of a child. She lived alone. A man who camped there woke weeks later to knocking at his bedroom window. 3 steady knocks, the same pattern he had heard in the hollow itself. Some believe that once you set foot in Black Hollow, a part of it clings to you. You carry it back with you, whether you want to or not, and so the legend spreads. Black Hollow becomes not just a story of a town lost to time, but a warning. A reminder that some places are not meant to be reclaimed, not meant to be disturbed. The ground remembers. The walls remember, the shadows remember, and they are patient. Even now, locals advise against searching for the ruins. They say the forest shifts, guiding or misguiding as it chooses. Some people will never find the hollow, no matter how hard they try. Others will stumble upon it without meaning to, and those are the ones most at risk. Because the legend of Black Hollow does not end in the past. It continues in the present, waiting for new names to add to its story. The fire may have destroyed the buildings, time may have erased the maps, but the town itself, in some form, remains. It whispers in the silence. It waits in the fog. And if you should ever find yourself in those woods, remember this. Do not follow the voices. Do not look too long at the shadows. And if you hear 3 knocks in the dark, turn back, no matter what. The legend of Black Hollow lives on. And as long as people wander the forest of West Virginia, as long as curious souls chase forgotten histories, the town will never be truly gone. It is out there still, waiting, and if you're not careful, one day you might find yourself walking its streets.